Thursday, August the 18th. Sorry I'm a day late on my fishing report, but as you can see, I'm kind of getting my shop back together. I got stuff all over the place, but just trying to get it organized. But the lake level is about 913, a little over half. It hadn't changed much at all since last week, but the water temperature is actually coming down a little bit. I got some high 70s the other day, you know, first thing in the morning. It's still been getting pretty warm in the day, but the nights have been cooling off pretty good. And that's kind of changing. There's a lot of fish starting to move up, or there's some fish, not a lot, but there's some fish starting to move up shallow. And the smallmouths are kind of starting to show up again. You know, throughout the summer, a lot of times when it gets real hot, we kind of lose the smallmouths so as far as catching them consistently. And then usually August, 1st of September, when it starts to cool down, seems like the smallmouth start biting a lot better, you know, in the day in that 15 to 20 foot range, and that seems to be happening pretty much all over the lake. But still the most dominant bite is probably a drop shot, the most consistent. And a lot of the same worms, you know, the chompers, brown, purple, laminated, real hard to beat. This Strike King is a KVD Dream Shot and Morning Dawn. You can also throw a robo worm, and I like to throw a plum quite a little bit too. Most of these fish are pretty close to the bottom. They're from anywhere from 25 to 35 feet, mainly on gravel points where you got a channel or whatever on one side. There's a football jig, and the ultimate finesse jig is the 5-fish ultimate finesse jig is catching some fish. And those fish are a little bit shallower, especially in the morning. You can take like a 9/16 ounce PBJ, tip it with a speed craw, or this one here, I've actually got a baby Strike King baby rage craw, but you can use like a speed craw or twin tail chompers. But a brown and purple will work good, a straight brown. And what I'm keying in, I'm actually going into the creeks and finding where the channel swing into the bank, where there's a point, or the channel swings and breaks away. And those fish there are, you know, relatively shallow, especially in the morning, anywhere from 5 feet to about 15 foot. And there's been some topwater fish showing up too. This is a good time of year that if you want to just tie on a top bait, you know, a topwater bait, and commit to it all day long. Good bait to throw would be a whopper flopper, and I like throwing a big one. Now, if I, you know, usually if there's a couple of us in the boat, I'll have someone throwing a smaller bait and one person throwing a bigger bait. But I think the bigger one has a little bit different sound. I think it's the 130, but it's got a little bit different noise to it. And my two favorite colors is probably a monkey butt, and I think this one here is called blue, but it's pretty much all black. But if they're biting a smaller bait, a good bait to go to is like a Yellow Magic, a Rico Poplar, or Strike King makes, I think it's called a Splashing. But they're about 2.5 inch long, basically it's like a pawpaw is what they are. These seem to work real good when the fish don't want a big bait. Now if you want to use a walking bait, the Sexy Dog, you know, it's real similar to a Zara Spook, and for a walking bait, it's probably the easiest walking bait of you know, so it walks a lot easier with less effort than a spook does. So if you like to throw a walking bait, try out one of these Sexy Dogs. I usually throw the bigger one, but if you're throwing on spinning gear, I'd probably throw the smaller one. It's a Sexy Dog Junior, and this is I think it's a chartreuse Sexy Shad is the color on this one here. And it's just a white, and it's got a little bit of chartreuse on the tail there. But the topwater fish, there's been some up shallow, and there's been some up over some submerged timber, like on bluff ends, and some of the same type areas you throw a jerkbait in the springtime, or topwater in the post spawn. And there are some fish schooling in the middle of the day. And I haven't even really talked about it, and I don't have any out here, but a spoon is still working good around docks, especially the real big flutter spoon. The Dixie Jet, they've got that real big one. Strike King's got a 4.5 inch. Those are catching a little bit bigger fish, but I'm catching more fish on a 1/2 ounce or 3/4 white flutter spoon or slab spoon in the boat dock stalls. Now, usually once I get them drop shot fish biting, a lot of times I'll pick up a 1/2 ounce spoon and just vertical jig it the same area that I'm catching the drop shot fish. But you can also catch football jig fish out in the same area as you're catching drop shot fish as well. I just seem to catch more numbers on the drop shot, but a little bit better quality on the jig. And you know, another thing that's happened, you know, I'm talking about a lot of different things, but with this cool down, with these fish moving shallow, there's a lot of different baits they'll bite, especially where they're chasing shad. Squarebill will work. Also a spinnerbait, especially early in the morning. But the squarebill will work throughout the day. And I usually mix it up with 2 different sizes. Don't be afraid to throw a 2.5, a big one, or I'll throw a 1.5. And I'm usually going to throw this, especially if I'm up in the river arms, any piece of wood I can find. I want to cast past the piece of wood and just crash it right into it. You know, bump the bait into it, let it pause for a second. But if you've got a nasty old brush pile out there on a flat 5 or 6 feet, don't be afraid. You know, if you get the crankbait stuck, you can go back in and get it. But you want to wind these things right through the nastiest brush there is, or stumps, or laydowns. Most of the time, the way the baits are designed, they come in nose first. So if you come crashing into a tree and get stuck, most of the time you can just give it a little bit of slack and it'll float up, and then you can start to retrieve again. But you can catch some quality fish up in the rivers right now on a squarebill, but it's kind of like the top water. You got to cover a lot of water. And with the lake level like it is, there's not a whole lot of shoreline cover to throw the squarebill on. So what you want to look for is go up in the river arms where there's, you know, 12, 15 foot of water left in a channel, and then maybe one side or the other's got a big shallow flat. It may only have, it doesn't take much water. You know, my buddy used to tell me it only takes 6 inches of water to cover a bass's back. But I mean, you'll catch fish 1 to 3 foot of water this time of year around some of them laydowns and snags out there on them flats. Work a spinnerbait by them, the top water, or try the squarebill. And like I say, it's going to happen. It's starting now, but it should continue for about a month or so. There seems to be a good shallow bite when we first start to get cool. And it's usually right around this time of year. So, until next week, good luck, good fishing.